Hello and welcome to the 9th installment of the 240SX Drift build. Today we will be focusing on hooking up our new motor, the KA24DE, and getting ready to turn the key. First, we will attach the KA24DE mass airflow sensor to our aftermarket cone filter. Next, we will attach the fuel lines. Hopefully we did not put them on backwards. Fuel lines are on. Next, we must snake the wiring harness through the hole in the firewall in an attempt to get it inside the car so we can hook it up to our brand new ECU. Just kidding, the ECU is like 24 years old. So I've decided to use the OEM piping that I got with the new motor, just because this cold air intake thing that I got on the car, it's really not what I want, just because hooking it up, if it were to go in here, just because the intake manifold on this motor is different than the one on the single cam motor, it's in a different spot, so it would put the intake at a really awkward angle. Don't really want that, and it's just so much easier to throw on the stock intake piping. And additionally to that, if I were to run the stock piping, I would be able to just use the factory fan for the radiator instead of having to use the electric stuff. I know some people will be like, oh, you're losing so much power because you're using this, but I mean, it's not even a noticeable amount of power. It's maybe 1 horsepower, if even that. So I think it would just be a lot more simple to use the stock fan, just because I don't have to remember to turn the radiator fan on, and it's just one less thing that will go wrong on the car. And with that, my new new radiator I got will actually be able to fit in the car, just because with this stupid intake it wouldn't be able to fit in the car, so I had to use the electric stuff. So that's where I'm going to go for that. So like right here, I'll also be able to stick it in there, and it will be able to clear underneath this tubing, as opposed to that stupid cold air intake, which wouldn't even fit on this dual cam motor, just because the throttle body intake area is in a different place on the dual cam motor as opposed to the single cam motor, so it wouldn't really fit directly on. So I just used the OEM piping, and then I just stuck the pod, whatever, cone filter on the end of that, and I'll probably just prop that up, just because this is a lot smaller, frees up a little bit of engine room, and maybe it will give me more power. I don't really know, but this is how I've decided to run it, and this should allow us to fit our dual core radiator with this stuff, so the fan won't hit the tube and everyone will be happy. Alright, so the next thing we're going to be working on is the EGR block off. I got this ISIS Performance block off plate on the internet for like $10, so we're going to be attempting to put that in. So I looked on the internet and I pretty much have figured out what I gotta do. There's a couple of bolts, one bolt here, bolt over here, and then a bolt like right underneath this runner. Gotta undo those, put the plate over it with our gasket maker, and then do some stuff with the vacuum line, and we should be good to go with that. And then we'll really be on the home stretch of getting this motor up and running. Alright, so in here you can see where the EGR system used to be. I have it right here in my hand. Took it out. It was not that complicated at all. It's just one bolt. It's a complete pain to get out, which is right there, that one. It's just kind of like right underneath this runner for the intake manifold. You just had to use a bendy thing to get to it. It wasn't too hard, just a pain. Besides that, we're pretty much done. We're just going to try and clean this surface off where the EGR, the original EGR system attached to the motor. And we're going to then just throw the block-off plate on top of that, cover up that hole, we'll be good to go. So right here you can see our block-off plate actually came with a nice paper gasket to throw in there, so we're not actually going to have to use a gasket maker RTV thing. This should do the trick. If it doesn't seal it, it's pretty easy. We'll just take it off, use the RTV, and then just throw it back on, and that should seal it up if this doesn't, but I'd rather just use this. It's a lot cleaner, simpler, and I mean, it came with it, so it probably works. So we're pretty much done. We're just gonna bolt this up, and then right over here, we're just gonna do something quick with this vacuum line. Next, I went ahead and installed the clutch fan for the radiator. Don't worry, I put the other 2 bolts in later on. As you can see, we are installing the new radiator we got off of eBay. So of course now, since we have the stock intake piping with the cone filter on it, we are not having the clearance problems with the radiator fan, which is a lot better just because now we're not going to have to run the stupid electric stuff. This is a lot simpler and just less stuff to go wrong, less stuff to forget to turn on. We're going to throw the dual cam ignition coil on where the single cam one was attached to the car. I don't know, this actually might be upside down. I don't know, because I took the other one off when I was painting the engine bay. I didn't really pay attention which way I took it off. But I don't really think it's going to make much of a difference if it is upside. It's upside down. Ratchet that down. First up, this goes over to the mass airflow sensor. Took the one off the other intake, stuck it on here, and then our little wire that goes to our distributor. Stick that on here. That actually might be upside down. Seems like that's just kind of like hanging out. But so all that work installing this fan, just taking out. Later on, never even using the car with it. So that's it. I pretty much just hooked up the cooling system through the radiator hoses back in, of course. Top one, bottom one down there. And then we of course hooked them up to the motor. Still missing a few hoses just because the ones that I got with the motor, a lot of them were destroyed and they just had been taped together. And then some of the ones on the car weren't the correct length, so I have some up there. So right there, those are the hoses that I've got to go buy new ones of. And after that, we should pretty much be in business. So it's pretty cool. This thing has a Nismo slave cylinder. Pretty neat. Someone actually stuck an aftermarket piece in there because that's definitely not the OEM slave cylinder. When doing the single cam to dual cam K swap, the throttle cable is a different length for the single cam and the dual cam motor. Of course, you can see here I have the single cam throttle cable because I don't want to buy a new one. At some point I probably will, but it kind of works. It, like, you just have to stretch it across the valve cover. It kind of looks like crap, but it's saving like 50 bucks, so that's pretty good. At some point I'm definitely going to buy the other one, but this one is completely functional. Just have to tighten it all the way down, and we should be good to go with that. So thus far, putting the new motor into the car, I think that this is probably the most irritating thing, is these bolts down here. Now, you may remember a while ago I said I thought I had lost the bolts, and that's because I had bolts and I thought they were the right ones, but they wouldn't fit in. I was like, oh, I guess these are the wrong size. I went on the internet, figured out what size they were, went out and bought some more, and they still didn't fit. So I was like, And then I came to the conclusion that the bolts were cross-threaded at some point, so they weren't going to work. So, bought this kit on the internet. It's supposed to help us, we're supposed to drill those out, tap some new holes, put in some threads, and then we should be good to go with our new bolts. So right now I'm just tapping the bolt, pretty straightforward. I drilled it out. I'm just using this wrench and twisting the tap into the hole. Pretty slow, but I'm trying to do it right so the bolt is actually going to go in straight. We'll see what happens after we get it out, but it looks pretty good for now. So I just tapped the hole. Looks pretty nice. Pretty straightforward. You got this little thing that kind of looks like a spring. Stick that in there, and then we should be able to put our bolt in. We'll see how this goes. So I just drilled out our second hole, and I'm getting ready to use our tap and just stick that right on in there. And we should be good to go with this. Finished up the other one. It was actually really simple. I really enjoy tapping the bolt holes. It's nice. So now we're gonna go work on our second one. That should be it. We'll be able to bolt the transmission in finally. It's just been sitting on this jack here for, oh gosh, maybe 3 months now, so it'll be nice to have it bolted up, and we'll be able to start doing other things. So we've got our transmission crossmember bolts torqued down to the specified torque. So done with that. That probably was the most difficult thing I've had to do so far on the car. It's been sitting like that for like 3 months, and it's finally done, which I'm pretty happy about. So let's move on to the next thing. So I've got the drive shaft in. I stuck it in the transmission, and then I've got the carrier bearing bolted up. I don't have it torqued down yet, just in case I have to remove it. And now I'm going on to the actual differential. I'm going to try and bolt that up right now. So we have pretty much finished everything. Carrier bearing torqued down. And of course our drive shaft bolts down there. Everything torqued down to spec. So that's pretty much it for the drivetrain. Now we can move on to the ECU. So for the ECU, pretty straightforward. Just bolted it in here and then bolted on the little connector on the front to hook everything up. And then the dash connector, which you may remember I spliced together or just stuck in. I took some wires out of this, stuck them in this so they'll fit into our new car, because this is the dash connector off a dual cam KA, and of course I had a single cam KA, so I had to use that connector because that's what would fit into the dashboard. So if anything goes wrong, it's probably going to be this. So yeah. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 240SX drift build. I did do a couple other small things I didn't think you guys would be interested in just because they were so small. The next video should be coming out pretty soon just because things are starting to move along a little bit more quickly nowadays. And hopefully in the next video we'll be able to turn the key and see if the motor actually starts. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so you will know whenever I do anything else and upload a video about it. You can also leave a comment below, and I will do my very best to respond to every single one of them. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.